Oh, Mindy and Bob, it is Friday, and I am joined by two amazing co hosts who I love having on. We do this every 2 weeks, and just been a really great collaboration. Just thank you again for joining me again this Friday, this very blistery, wintry Friday, no less. And we have a really cool topic today that we're going to be talking about. And I can think of no better pair but you two to discuss. And our topic today will really be on soft skills and in the workplace, ideally, and how, if you've got soft skills, how you can improve them, not only globally, but in your resume and during an interview. Soft skills they're often called people skills or emotional intelligence, and they're defined as the ability to interact amicably with others. They are personal attributes that can affect relationships, communication, and interactions with others. We're going to share some tips and tricks for effectively incorporating your soft skills and core competencies into your resume and interview and beyond, such as leadership, empathy, emotional quotient, work ethic, ability to negotiate, organization, time management, communication effectiveness, teamwork, problem solving, and working under pressure. And I want to introduce my co hosts, Mr. Bob Britz and Mindy May. How are you two?
Very
Wonderful.
good. How are you, Kevlin?
Good, good, thank you. And again, like I said earlier, I could really choose no other two people to talk about this subject than you two. And I'd like to introduce each one of you and share with the audience your expertise and experiences on this very topic. So, again, I'm joined by Bob Britz, who is the founder of Career Coach Services and creator of the Career Coach System, a proven process to help people find meaningful, fulfilling, and financially rewarding employment. He's an expert in human behavior and motivation and a results-focused entrepreneur. Bob has unique approaches for helping job seekers in entry level, middle, and advanced phases of their careers. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. And I am joined by the lovely Mindy May. Mindy is a longtime HR professional with over 20 years of experience. She has been the head of HR departments throughout her varied career, including a dot-com startup, a nonprofit, entertainment, Cirque du Soleil. We've had fun conversations around that, and financial services. She has interviewed and recruited hundreds of individuals at all levels of employment. Welcome, Mindy.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's get started and really dive into this pretty fascinating topic that you both are experts in. And I'm going to pass it over to you to start this.
Maybe just to give everybody a framework around why this is important, because you always hear about your skills and your resumes and things, but really what companies are looking for is a combination of your skill sets to do a job, but also the soft skills, the emotional skills, the personal attributes, the personality style of you that's going to contribute to the culture, make it easy to work with you, and give you the abilities to then do the tasks successfully. So that's kind of the overall framework of what soft skills are. And people are absolutely looking for those now.
Absolutely. I think that it's a major part of a job fit is to know what the soft skills are. And there's a lot of ways to put those on your resume. You have to be kind of clever about it, because just listing various soft skills like, teamwork, problem solving, etc., can sound a little silly. Anybody can be good at those things. But the best way to put them on your resume is when you're describing what you've done in your past positions, you can fold them in, such as like spearheaded, intense project, met all deadlines, etc. And this says, oh, you're good at your time management. You're good at leadership. You spearheaded. I mean, it's difficult to ascertain sometimes what those soft skills are, but the more you put them in your resume and throughout your descriptions of your jobs, the more they become apparent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of the main things that we have to struggle with initially, and we're doing it right now with you. It's communication skills, right? You have to be able to communicate with people, customers, vendors, employees, friends. Everyone has to be communicated with. And when we think about certain jobs like engineering, okay, engineer people tend to be pretty bright people, but they tend to be a little quieter, and their communication skills are crucial to their success and the growth of their career. And one of the things that I would frequently say in a resume is possesses the ability to relay complex concepts in terms that everyone can understand. Now, that's a skill, that's a soft skill that's really valuable to anyone in technical to do something like that. But it's your written skills, it's your verbal skills. And we have a lot of tools now to help make those easier to do. You can use ChatGPT, you can use Grammarly, you can do different things to modify some of those communications. But it's oftentimes the delivery of the information, how you deliver it. Are you being sarcastic? Are you being sincere? As Mindy mentioned earlier, do you have emotional intelligence involved here at all? Or are you just, being blunt and blasting everybody with what you think all the time? So these things really make a difference in a company and a culture and everyday work for everybody else you work with. So communication is a huge one.
Well, I would say too that you would take your resume obviously and obviously guided by you guys and you two. And so your resume would have to somewhat match your interview, and it has to be very you have to be very, I guess, confident of your skill set and your what you bring to the table so that it reflects in the resume and in the interview process and beyond. When you get the job, it's going to reflect, like what you just said, it's going to affect the culture. It's going to affect maybe the bottom line because of communication skills or leadership skills or what have you. So it all has to match.
Right.
Definitely. I think that people sometimes may have trouble defining just what their soft skills are. Maybe they never really thought about it that way. It's a lot easier to write down a technical skill on your resume than it is a soft skill. So there are some tools that we have that you can use to figure out what your soft skills are and to figure out good ways to put them in your resume. There's an assessment called emotional quotient, and it's kind of like an IQ, only it's EQ. And it uses 5 different factors to measure a person's individual emotional intelligence. And most of the time, that has to do with how well you know yourself and how well you know others. Can you pick up on what others are thinking? Can you then regulate those skills in a way that makes you a better decision maker and more effective in the workplace? So if you've got a soft skill that says you're a very, very good listener and you're able to incorporate new ideas into your projects, the emotional quotient test can tell you that. And we can also figure out some really good ways to put that on your resume because it's not obvious. It's not something that everybody has. And if you have it and if you're good at it, let's showcase it. Let's showcase it in those marketing materials that you're using to try to secure yourself a better position.
Absolutely. And another thing that comes up a lot is teamwork. And with people working remotely now, about 58% of our clients are actually working from home and are not going back to the office. No matter what the Wall Street Journal tells you or whatever paid advertisement a big corporation tells you, people are not going back. So how do you collaborate effectively remotely, right? You have to be present. You have to be contributing. You have to be listening. You have to have your camera on. Did everybody hear me say that?
Camera
Keep
on.
the camera on during your calls, unless it's 500 people and you're having lunch. That's different. But for most cases, if you're not on the screen, you're not participating, it's not part of the teamwork. And so that's huge. The other thing about teamwork is that some people are really great with teamwork and harmony and collaboration, and other people aren't. Other people are more decisive and direct and leadership focused. And if you tell them that they have to have a team meeting every single week for 2 hours, they're going to decompose in front of you because they just can't do that. They aren't geared to do that. They may want to lead the group, but they're not going to be wanted to just do the time to do the collaboration and things. So it's really important that you have the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
This is kind of what teamwork is about. And you have to, as a hiring company, you have to examine your candidates for how well will they fit into the culture of that department. Will they work well with it? Are they going to be disruptive just by who they are? They're not being mean. They're just different personality styles.
Right.
Yeah.
As Mindy mentioned, we have a series of assessments to help identify not only the emotional quotient, but also what motivates you, how you behave, and we can call out things that may be challenges for you in a job if you have to go work in a collaborative environment, or if you need to lead, other way around, if you need to lead but you're not a leader, you have to work out that as well. So all of this comes full circle around with teamwork and collaboration. It's incredibly important. And it's what so many people these days are looking for in their job environment when they do have to go in the office or they have to work in the office. You know, we all see the TV show, The Office, right? Everyone's seen that show. It's just like everyone's seen, you know, with Kramer and everybody. But those are those are actually scenarios that kind of happen
Yeah.
during the day, and it can wreck your job.
Right.
Well, it can wreck your life. I mean, we spend so much time in the office
Oh,
environment or with our colleagues and leadership that you've got to be happy. At the end of the day, you know,
You
people quit
do.
because of the bad management, not anything else really. And so, Mindy, I wanted to touch on a little bit about what you said about the emotional quotient and that the EQ and what Bob just mentioned just a minute ago regarding the assessments. I have recently survived the assessment process, and it was
So good. That's
awesome.
a good
It was
word.
awesome. I think, you know, most people are afraid to see what the answers are, but I wasn't necessarily that. It was more, okay, what are they going to find that I can actually like learn more about myself? And that's what happened. And so I highly recommend for anybody that shoot, just in general, I think it's helpful to periodically take these assessments that your company offers to really understand maybe your needs have changed. Maybe you're like what Mindy always says, maybe your needs have changed and maybe you don't want to be a school teacher for the next 32 years, or, you know, you've done it for 10 years and you want to maybe see else is out there. I would say that, you know, the emotional leadership aspect of it, the emotional quotient aspect of it is even more so. Who knows what you're capable of with the data and the analytics that are able to be achieved from taking these assessments. So do you offer the EQ assessment as well when people connect with you? That's
Yes.
something that's a product?
It
yeah.
is. We're just starting to offer it. And I've just recently taken the test to become a certified EQ assessor.
Mhm.
And I really found it fascinating and most helpful. I mean, really what we're talking about here is showcasing your soft skills on your resume so that they can figure out if you're a cultural fit. Are you a cultural fit? And the first step in knowing whether you're a cultural fit is how well you know yourself. And
Right.
maybe you're really, really good at some of these things, but you were never really able to articulate it or let people know. You just kind of took it for granted. You're like, oh, everybody's good at teamwork or everybody's good at leadership. Well, that's not true. And, you know, if you find out who you are, you're more apt to be able to explain that well on your resume. And you're more apt to be able to find a place where the culture fits who you are, because every company has a different culture.
Mhm.
And it is quite possible to go through all the trouble, do all the right things, and land yourself on a job and find out you're not a cultural fit. It happens all the time. And I think it's a really, 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 it's probably the most important part about finding a new job is making sure that you fit the culture.
I
So,
love what you just said. That Bob, let's cut that into a snippet. The
yeah,
to be able to articulate like what you just said, like you may not know that you're good at that. And when you find out that you are, to be able to articulate, I will tell you that not everybody's good at teamwork and not everybody's good at leadership. And maybe the person on the team should be the leader, not the leader doing the leading. So
Absolutely.
there's really things, and as people mature, their skill sets and their experiences and expertise improve and grow. And so why wouldn't you want to start, you know, reaching out a little bit more of what might be possible, and what better way to do so than to conduct an assessment about
Mhm.
yourself with people that are professionals that can help you identify and understand what the results prove to be.
Mhm.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think another way of doing that, along with the assessment, is to ask your coworkers or people who have worked with you in the past, what do you think my strengths are, or what did you enjoy working with me? Right? Because they will have something and they will explain it in a way that maybe you didn't know, or maybe you did know, but didn't know it stood out quite that much.
Mhm.
So feel free to use your connections, use your LinkedIn people, use anyone that has known you and worked with you. Ask them this. Ask them, and then write down the key points, put it in your resume. I mean, the other thing about these writing down your skills, your technical skills and your soft skills in your resume is they could be the key words that the applicant tracking systems are looking for. So you want to make sure they're in there. These applicant tracking systems are getting trickier and trickier. They're using AI. I mean, I think they're probably, in my professional opinion, I think they're eliminating more people than they should.
Yeah.
So it's very tricky, and you've got to have the proper words in there for that particular position, that particular field, so that your resume isn't one of those that gets kicked out just because you didn't put a certain word in.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, so your soft skills and your technical skills are two places to make sure all of those are included.
Let me address two areas you just mentioned because they're both really key. First of all, when you start talking about what your soft skills are, how do people perceive you? What would your former employees you work with say about you? What are the attributes they would say are your strongest attributes? And you don't have to necessarily ask them because you probably have had these conversations. You just haven't thought about it much. So when you think about what other people would say about you, that's the type of information that goes in your profile on the top of your resume. And that profile is not about, I worked 31 years here, I made $2,000 on this. I don't care about any of that. That's in the job stuff. This is all about you and who you are. And when someone reads that, they should have a very good impression of what it's going to be like working with you every day in that profile. And we very rarely see good profiles written, and we do a great job of it. The second segment is going to be your core competencies. As Mindy said, a lot of these are keywords. They are keywords because they're defined in a way that the system's looking for them to validate if you have these or not. Then beneath that, typically, is the technical competencies. And you can have everything from Salesforce to just the letter R, the letter C++. I mean, the arrangement's a little bit awkward. But when someone looks at your resume for the first time, they're looking at the first half: profile, competencies, skills, and first job. They get through those four things. They have enough information to decide, shall I move them forward or not? And as to the ATS systems that Mindy mentioned, she's totally right. They are getting better, but there's some rules around this. An ATS system can only reject you if you don't answer the first few questions yes or no, like how many years is your degree or how many years have you worked in. If it gets past those and gets passed forward, your resume has to be reviewed by a human being to be rejected. That's the rules. And so people worry all the time about getting every key word in their resume and how many times it's in there and stuff. And probably only 15% of the ATSs out there actually can read them that way. The older ones can't. They're just doing a PDF attachment to a CRM record, and then you get the list of the job application they want you to fill out after you've already submitted, which frustrates people to no end. Why am I doing that when I just submitted it? Well, it's because the ATS really isn't an ATS. It's just an attachment vehicle to get to the CRM. So these all play into the whole process in your resume and then in your interviews. You have to be able to articulate these things to people. And if you have it in your bullets of your resume and you've worked with us to write your resume, you've interviewed with us on every bullet. You know your bullets. You know how to respond. So all of this starts to really fit together the way Minnie brought it up. And it's really critical to your success in your job search.
Well, and the beauty, the differentiator that career coach makes versus what you just described of submitting resumes and having it kicked out repetitively is the career coach can actually the melding of it, everything fits, the bullet points, when you're going into that interview. But the differentiator is that you teach people how to use their network to get the interviews. So it's
Right.
not you're putting it out there to an ATS system every single day and getting rejected, not knowing why.
Mhm.
And that is really the highlight. And that's why I love really showcasing what you and your team are all about, Bob, because it's you guys are the one-stop shop and getting people their jobs, their careers, that they want, not just submitting resumes and hoping, and
Mhm.
then not really getting the feedback of why didn't I get that job? Because they're not going to tell you. You're going to get a little letter and it's going to say, sorry, we've not chosen you, right? Is that typically what happens? So they're
Yeah.
not going to, it's not like you're going to, grade school and the teacher's going to tell you what you need to prove. It's, but you guys can help be
Yeah.
the coach and the trusted advisors to really line up people in 5 to 9 weeks. And Bob, I mentioned this, I bring this up every single time that we have you on, but you've placed over 9,000 professionals in careers that it's specifically that they've driven towards by the use of your guidance and their own network.
Right.
So there,
Yeah. Well,
career coach.
people always tell you to network. Everybody tells you to network. Nobody ever tells you exactly how to do it.
Mhm.
Right.
And if you're not super creative, or you don't like going to little events and having how do you do that? And we teach our clients exactly how to do it so that they can go from here to a job. Usually, I mean, with very few exceptions, 5 to 9 weeks, not months. You don't
Not
have
months of
you
guessing.
don't
Mhm.
have
And
the
and
money or the time to do that for 6 months.
it's time people have mortgages and car payments, and
That's
it
right.
really is something. I've watched you. I've known you for so long, and I have loved working with each of your career coaches, and I believe in what you are doing, and I can't speak highly enough about you and your products. So okay, let's move on. So the melding of having the soft skills, be able to be clear as day so that you could show off your attributes in the interview and the resume. So how's that done? How do people know how to do that?
Well, I always recommend that besides listing skills, competencies, and skills, that when you get to the bullet points, you incorporate them into what you've done on your past job. And one of the things to do is to start each bullet point with an exciting action word like spearheaded. I love that one. That's a great word. Explored, if you were doing research, make it sound like you were doing more than just completing a task. And as you do that, you can work your soft skills into the sentence. Spearheaded project completement in a timely manner for 12 divisions. So what does this say? This says you're a leader. This says you do things on time. This says you work with multiple teams. You've just incorporated like 3 or 4 soft skills right there into that sentence. So keep them in mind, identify what they are, and keep them in mind when you're writing the descriptions of what you've done in your past jobs throughout your entire resume.
Yeah. A little quick byline to that. There's a nice way to organize your bullet. And Mindy said it, but I'll break it down for you. It's what you did, why was it important to the company? And then how did you use your influence to make that happen? And within that, your soft skills just all flip into it. But the key thing that people miss out on is why was it important to the company? You can be running it's hamster wheel all day long. Does it help the company? No, but I meant went around 7,000 times. Well, who
Mhm.
cares, right? Tell me why it was important for the company that you were working
Right.
for.
Right.
And that gives a lot more credence to what your soft skills are as you write those bullets.
Well, the hamster wheel could be consistency
Yeah, it could be. Could
or
also be
dedication,
insanity. It could be insanity.
Might not be getting anywhere though. So that's
loyal.
that's what you want to put on your resume.
But honestly, there's not everybody's going to want to be the star football
Oh
player
yeah.
or what have you, and whether it's the hamster wheel or anywhere in between, there's so many amazing skills that I'm sure each person has, and
Mhm.
to be able to draw it out, and I also want to touch on too. I would say most people might be shy about maybe tooting their own horns, or they don't want to come across as too confident or cocky or not confident with low self-esteem. So can we talk about that a little bit, where maybe we could help accentuate maybe the, the not totally confident person to be more confident, and
Right.
maybe have the super confident person pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had so many clients. What you're describing actually is someone who's either introverted or maybe lacks confidence. When they work with our coaches, they're hour and a half long sessions, from developing the resume and the LinkedIn, the cover letter, and their network, and the whole process of using the network. And by the time they work through that with us, they develop the confidence to talk about what they've been talking to us
Right.
about.
Mhm.
Every stage is an interview. It's not really an interview, but really it is. So by working with a coach, whether it's us or somebody else, you're going to come out farther ahead, more confident, more articulate, just by doing the process of updating your documents with someone who knows how to help you do that.
And
Yeah,
and
I love
don't
that.
practice. Don't
Yes.
practice in your interview.
Yes. I was just gonna say that I love that, because I find that when I'm working with my clients and we're done reworking their resume, using some of these things we've been talking about, changing the wording, they just light up. They become very proud of themselves because,
Yes.
and that's how they should feel. I look for that when I'm done with the resume with someone. Do you like it? I say, and they're like, yeah, I love it. And that's what you need. And I'd say a small minority of people go into an interview feeling confident. Most of the time, people are nervous and they're
Mhm.
not quite sure. They're having all those triggers. They don't know if they're good enough. They don't know if they'll say it right. They don't know if they can do it. They don't know, they don't know anything. So, and unfortunately, interviewing is not something you really get to practice by doing a bunch of interviews, because you're on. There's no dress
No.
rehearsal, really. So you have to do it with an interview coach. You have to do it separately and try to cover all those bases, so that when you're asked a difficult question, like, say, for example, explain a really challenging situation you had in the past and how did you handle it? You've got that answer. You don't have to stop and think. You've already figured it out before, and the way you word it and say it is going to incorporate all of your soft skills, some of your hard skills. I mean, it's amazing what can happen when you gain that confidence by
Mhm.
practicing.
Right.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I would say too that, like, don't waste it on a good interview. Like, if you've been looking for
Right.
this company and you've wanted to work for them,
Yeah.
don't practice then. And like with an Olympic athlete, they have a coach, right? And there's business coaches of all varieties. And if I mean, this is probably the biggest investment that you could do for yourself, is to align yourself with a coach, and or somebody. And I want to touch on, when you ask feedback from uh, folks that you know or your colleagues. I one time worked for a company called Honeywell. I don't know if you've ever heard of them or not, but
No.
they had this program. It was called a something 360, and it was just that, where you would ask two colleagues or three colleagues and your direct report, your manager person, and it was all done like systematically. And because most of the times you might be asking for a raise or for a promotion, and it was a really good experience to go through. I don't think they were used to receiving them, because I don't remember what the outcome was, but I did like it, because what you just said too, Mindy, when when your clients light up after, you're like, okay, well, what about this or what about this?
Mhm.
Remember when you get the girls or the attaboy when you were a kid, that one little attaboy, that one little attagirl can make all the difference,
Yes.
and versus maybe a self-talk where you're doubting yourself, or the negative speak or what have you. And when you have somebody, whether it's your aunt or your dad, or a colleague might meet off site, and where they're saying, no, I see this in you, you should put that, it really does bring a different light to the
Mhm.
conversation. Do you?
Mhm.
Definitely. I mean, I love those 360 appraisals.
Me
That's
too.
what it was.
I used to do them all the time. And is if you have a company that has a good culture where people feel free to be honest, they're really effective,
Okay,
really.
good to know.
Yep.
And you've got to know how the people that report to you feel about you. You've got to know how coworkers, people from other teams, um, and the same with the management. They have to know. You have to be able to review your manager. I think
Right.
that getting that kind of feedback it's really, really valuable. And
Yep.
I really wouldn't I try to talk all my managers into using those kinds of appraisals because that's where that's where you really get what you want to know from an appraisal.
Yeah.
For sure, and I would say even if your company, like, say you might be on the fence of whether you're not when you wanna stay at the company or what have you, I'm sure there's 360 appraisals that you can Google that you could probably download and have, and maybe be proactive and ask your boss or your leadership that, "Can I pursue this? Because I'm interested in XYZ. I want a raise or I want a promotion. I wanna understand where I might be able to improve or not, and I'm ready, and if y'all say that I'm ready, then let's get to the next step, right?"
I like it. That's very proactive, positive way
Hmm.
of trying to affect change for yourself or for the company by
Yeah.
finding that out and by using it as a tool.
That's awesome. So, Bob, early on in our conversation, we had the list that I stated
Mhm.
before, and you mentioned empathy. Can we talk a little bit about that because I feel that that needs to be talked about, and that's something
Sure.
that you said that is a really hot topic right now.
It really is, and I want to just to start off by defining. There's two words that people think of all the time in this context. One is sympathy, and the other is empathy, and they're very different, but they sound the same. So people think, "Oh, I've got both." No, you don't necessarily. Sympathy is where you identify with somebody, you can appreciate their situation, you can talk to them, you can coach them. Empathy is where you actually put yourself into that person's position and see it from their point of view. That's kind of Bob's definition of it, but that's pretty close to what I think you can find on Google. And the difference is that one, it draws the other person in and makes you're a team talking about this issue. The other is, oh, that's so sad. Where's the coffee creamer? And it's a real difference. But when you're
Yeah.
empathetic, if you're an empathetic leader, your staff will follow you wherever you go because they know you have their back and you understand them and you're nurturing and building them, and it's just huge.
Yeah.
So how do you learn this skill? I'm not sure how you learn it. You have to be conscious of it when you're affronted with a problem in a situation with somebody, and when you're in that situation, that's when you have to say, okay, I can make a comment or I can be empathetic and be part of this with them, and that just goes so far in a company.
Those are great points. I think I'm envisioning writing empathetic leader in someone's resume in the future. I
Yeah.
mean, and the back to the emotional quotient assessment, it asks you just that. How aware are you of what other people are thinking or feeling? What is your spidey sense? Like, are
Mhm.
you a person that doesn't notice when people are upset in a meeting or doesn't care? Or are you a person that picks up on that and adjusts your delivery accordingly? Because obviously, the person who's able to do that is going to get a lot more loyalty from their employees. They're going to be a more effective leader and they're going to be able to carry things on to the next level. If someone isn't like that, people tend to shut down and stop. So I think both having self-awareness and social awareness, as they call it,
Mhm.
are really key important points to being an effective leader and decision maker and can be portrayed in your resume.
Yep.
And a
Well,
lot of
I second that,
people.
Mindy, for sure, and I'd say 3, 4 of the most amazing, leaders that I've worked under and now work with, they've reflected that and the empathetic leadership, and they care, and it might not be exactly at that moment in the boardroom, but to take you aside maybe, shortly afterwards, like, "Hey, was there a comment that it looked like that affected you. Can we talk about that?
Right.
That is huge. And like what you
Huge.
said too, Bob, people will follow those type of leaders wherever they go because it is so empowering to be surrounded by that. We have enough stress in our life, right? The
Right.
last thing we need to do is not work for an empathetic leader. So,
Yes, but they are rare. I mean, I think some people in leadership positions have either forgotten about that or they're afraid to tap into it.
Hmm.
So that's why these sessions that we're doing and assessments and everything can really help leaders too, or people who really even aren't looking for a job, because it reminds them and teaches them what's important.
Right. You know, we talked about some other things, different attributes. One of them was adaptability. And I was talking earlier about, introverts not knowing how to network. And I don't want to pick on introverts. I am an introvert. Trust me, I am. But there's also the extrovert side of it. And a lot of leaders, like Minnie just mentioned, don't have these skills. They're not wired that way anyway. They're decisive. They're punctual. They want to drive things. And Katie, bar the door. We're coming through, and that's not empathetic at all.
no.
But the other piece of it is on adaptability. That's another key factor. And I mentioned, the engineer being able to have good communication skills is a big plus for them. Being adaptable is also a real plus for engineering, because engineering people tend to like to have things consistent. And that's not an adaptable trait. But if you can learn to be adaptable and take on change without, freaking out in the middle of it, that's huge. And if you're in a group that doesn't do that and you do,
Right.
you're set up for the future.
Right. And you know what the great news about these things that we're talking about here is that if you learn more about your soft skills and your style and how you come across, you can improve it. You can change it. It's not set in stone,
Right.
like other assessments or even an IQ test seems to not change over time.
Right.
This emotional quotient that we're talking about, this soft skills, these things that make you a great person to work with, they're trainable and they're workable. So if you're not so good at it right now, if you find that out, that doesn't mean you're always not going to be that good at it. You can learn and you can change to up your emotional quotient, shall we
I
say.
love that, Mindy, and you're so right. I mean, that was the neat thing from the assessment that I did with Bob, where it's like, oh, wow, okay, because I know that, but when it's reflected back on you,
Yeah.
you can't undo the data, right? And that was really, really, I'd never done one before, or I did, but I maybe forgot. But the emotional quotient assessment, I mean, really, you could learn probably a new skill or improve upon what you are already doing within 4 to 6 weeks, probably the same time that you're working with you 2 in
Mhm.
getting that
Yes.
position, and maybe by the time you get, prepared to have that interview, maybe you took a class or maybe you paid, got YouTube and did a 4-week session or what have you. There are things that you can train yourself to do in a short time period, or at
Yes.
least be aware of.
Right.
Right. And awareness is, of course, key. You can't,
Mhm.
becoming aware of it is, 60% of the battle.
Yeah.
If you understand it and you're aware of it, then, trying to improve it or change it is going to come naturally.
And
And
it's
that's
fun.
really the beauty of it. That's why I love
Yeah.
talking about
Well,
this, and that's why I love doing it, because people can indeed learn and improve on their style.
Oh,
it's funny.
absolutely.
We've done thousands of assessments with clients, and I have never had a client quit the process. It's always so fascinating and empowering and helpful for them. And like Kevin said, sometimes you don't realize, I know I do this, but how much do I do that? Oh my gosh, I do that a lot.
Right, right.
And it gives you the framework and toolkit, as Minnie said, to be aware. 60% of the problem is being aware of the problem, and then mapping out a way to either address it and work with it, or realize that this is just me and I need to work with that too. But they are fascinating to take, absolutely
Yeah,
fascinating.
they really are.
So can I share some feedback regarding our assessments? A, it was an amazing process. Please do it. anybody that sees this, it was kind of life changing for me. And all parents out there, some of the results that came back from my assessment made me realize that I could improve in a few areas with my kids. And I did. And they really appreciated that too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah,
Wow.
definitely. So it's not just for, driving towards a career aspect of it. It could these assessments that you come back with on yourself can really shine light on some weaknesses and skill sets that might not be great, right?
Mhm.
Like, okay, you're good at that and that and that, but are you losing friends? Are you losing opportunities? Are you, having a riff with your children? Or so with my kids, because they're teenagers, so it's always kind of a slippery slope anyway with raising them. But it really did get me to a point where I looked at those results and I said, you know what, I could do a better job in this department. And so it did help. And there were a few items that I want to learn more about that. I want to improve upon some of those skills that I
Mhm.
naturally have that are a little maybe unharnessed or unbridled at the moment, but it is something, and if you're, don't laugh, Bob, you know what I'm talking.
Unbridled. Unbridled.
Unbridled.
So, but I can't, I mean, even if it's not with Bob and Mindy, just go get those assessments, whether it's an emotional intelligence assessment, quotient assessment, or actually the personality assessments to be able to ascertain what your skills and weaknesses might be to improve or again, chill out on a little bit. So,
Right.
well,
Don't be afraid of them. It's
yes,
people start out by like, "Oh, I don't know if I wanna hear that stuff
don't
about
be
myself.
afraid.
What if it isn't good?" But it's not like that. It's revealing,
Mhm.
and it's interesting.
Yeah,
It's neither bad or good, and,
right.
most of the time when you're done reading that, people really feel good because they understand better. It's been, quantified and formulated onto the results of
Yeah,
an assessment, and they feel that they can work with it or even improve on it.
yeah.
So it's not scary at all. It's actually really kind of fun.
Well,
Yeah.
I recommend everybody go get a DNA test, and a personality assessment, and
Who
an
are we?
emotional
Who am
intelligence.
I?
A DNA test. That's a little bit much for the interview process, but bring it.
Yeah.
Hold on a second, though. People
Here's
ask,
my
"Oh,
humor. Here's my
yeah,
humor.
when they actually do ask you your nationality, which is illegal, right? That
Right.
at least you know what you are to maybe answer it if you didn't want the job.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned, Wendy and I, but, a career coach has 24 offices with coaches. And, there's many of us that can help you do this. And one of the things that I look for in a coach is their work ethic. How are they approaching the work? And today you can go out and find lots of stereotypical articles about, the Gen Z, YX, PQR. But the truth is that companies are looking for work ethic.
Yep.
So if you're young and you've got a couple of jobs, you better show where you stuck it out and persevered and survived and show that in your resume, because the impression is, at least from the media, is that that group doesn't like to work. They want to come in at 10 o'clock at night with their latte. And, that's always the case. And if you're not that person, show it.
Be the
Right.
example.
The example of that,
Be the example.
be the example.
Yeah, be
Absolutely.
the
Right.
example.
Right.
So, in honor of your time and our audience's time, let's go ahead and wrap this up. And are there any star statements you would like to share with folks that are watching? And I also wanted to ask if there's anything that if people wanted to learn a little bit more about you and what you're offering. I do have a comment that has asked about what services you offer and the cost of those services. So I know that that's probably a per experience situation based on their needs. Is that, again, is there something that you want to end with and offer?
Well, sure. I mean, I think, to answer the question of cost, everyone always wants to know how much things cost. I don't blame them. To work with us is going to run anywhere from, I don't know, $500 to $3,000. And there's a huge wide range of things that covers. So to your point, to have an alignment with us, any coach on our platform will do a free 30 to 45-minute discussion with you about your career. At that point, you can decide what you actually need, and then you can look at what costs go along with that. But it always pays off because you're finding a job much, much faster than going 6 months out at whatever
Sure.
your pay rate was, out of your 401k or out of your severance or out of your savings, why not make that much shorter and get a job sooner? So
It's one of the best investments that I ever did. So if just take that for heed. So yeah,
Finding a job and feeling more confident about yourself. I think that confidence boost is one of the biggest things that coaching can offer you. And, when you're doing your resume, I just like to say identify those soft skills as best you can. Things that, like we've discussed, leadership, time management, teamwork, adaptability, empathy, etc., and work them into your resume in both qualitative and quantitative ways. Just a series of bullet points
yeah,
that lets them know how great you've been at doing things on time, what kind of leadership you've been able to do, etc. It will really, really help and advance your resume to the next level.
awesome. And I want to highlight too that your services are available fully remote. You don't have to meet anybody or have coffee.
Right.
I love that. Like that would be fun for me. And obviously Bob and I have done so in the past, but it's their services are all done remotely, which makes it so much more convenient. You could do this at night, I'm sure. I don't know if there's weekend opportunities if people are working full time, but Bob, would you mind Bindi? No, no. Okay, forget that.
not weekends. Sorry,
Okay, not weekends, not weekends. Sorry about that. I retract.
we-
But is there any way that you can put in the actual event comments, Bob and Mindy, your the website where people can go to get a hold of you? Obviously, we are all three available on LinkedIn, and just go to our profile picture. Underneath the profile picture on LinkedIn, you'll see contact information that you could
right.
personalize DM any one of us on this panel today. And again, I'm happy to help as well. I'm obviously a marketing and branding expert for businesses, and if there's any support that I can offer you and your company, I'd love to also offer an alignment call to identify where your needs might be in that department. So again, Bob, Mindy, it's been a pleasure as always, and this is a great conversation, great topic, and I hope that our audience really found value in what we had to talk about. And I look forward to our next outing in a couple weeks. Friday at 10 is our standing date. So I wish you all a great Friday and a wonderful weekend. Stay warm out there.
All right. Thank
Take
you,
care.
Kevin. Thank you,
All
Bob.
right.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.